Time now for business. Let's say hello to Kate Moody.
Hi, Francois.
The G7 summit is over. It's on to the G20 for that proposal to have a minimum global corporate tax rate.
Yeah, in many ways, reaching that agreement on the G7 level was the easy part. Now, as you say, that has to be sold to a bigger group. The G20 finance ministers are due to meet in about a month's time. Leaders from that group then in October. Now, that's going to be a key test in seeing whether this 15% minimum that was agreed by the G7 can, in fact, garner more support from the world's 20 biggest economies, including many developing ones. The plan would, in theory, include both that global minimum corporate tax of 15% and impose new rules requiring multinational corporations and tech giants to pay tax in any country that they have operations. The talks are still being overseen by the OECD, and the 15% would represent a significant decrease for many of those members. The average corporate tax rate of the mostly wealthy 37 countries in the OECD group is 23%. But U.S. President Joe Biden argued this weekend it would be a step in the right direction. Take a listen.
Too many corporations have been engaged in what are essentially tax havens, deciding that they would pay considerably less in other environs around the world. But this is going to make sure there's a minimum tax, and I'm going to move on this at home as well. Minimum tax for corporations to pay for the profits they make anywhere in the world.
Well, many of those leaders are now attending the NATO summit. Both Russia and China could represent a threat to cybersecurity in Europe and North America. That's according to a statement from NATO as it adopted a new cyber defense policy. In recent weeks, criminal groups with ties to Russia have conducted ransomware attacks on a number of high-profile targets, including a U.S. oil pipeline, meat processing firm JBS, and the Irish health system. NATO today saying the allies would increase cooperation, intelligence sharing, and defenses to protect both the public and private sector from what it described as complex, destructive, and ever more frequent cyber threats. Let's check in on the day's trading action. Now, a mixed close for the major European indices. We saw shares of Philips falling 4% after it recalled some of its ventilator machines in the United States. Slight gains of about 1/4 percentage point here in Paris, up about 0.2% in London as well. Wall Street is trending mostly lower, just the Nasdaq trading above the flat line this hour. The Dow Jones down nearly 0.75 percentage point. The big impact on the big mover, rather, of the markets this week is going to be the U.S. Federal Reserve, the central bank kicking off a 2-day policy meeting on Tuesday. We'll be hearing from it on Wednesday to see if there will be any shift in its monetary policy, a response to climbing levels of inflation in the United States. 4 directors at the iconic Japanese electronics firm Toshiba have been ousted from their positions, although the chairman of the board has resisted calls to resign. A recent report suggested that executives and members of the Japanese government had tried to influence votes in the boardroom. Emerald Maxwell reports.
After a damning report at Toshiba came an apology to shareholders, along with a shifting of blame by Chairman Osamu Nagayama onto Toshiba's former CEO.
There is no denying that former president and CEO, Mr. Kurumatani, is a factor behind this. The somewhat confrontational relationship with the shareholders was fostered by him, and in a sense, this contributed to the current situation.
Last week, an independent investigation commissioned by Toshiba shareholders revealed that the industrial conglomerate had enlisted Japan's Economy and Trade Ministry to pressure foreign investors against exercising their proposal and voting rights in a bid to bring them in line with management's goals.
Toshiba requested the support of the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry to counter the activist investors at the annual general meeting, and so to speak, worked in unison with the Ministry's Commerce and Information Policy Bureau to deal with shareholders.
A tense board meeting Sunday saw 2 directors step down, with 2 other directors barred from re-election. Japan's trade minister on Friday denied his officials directed an advisor to lean on the company's foreign shareholders. Nagayama said Toshiba will hold an emergency general meeting to appoint new board members, 2 of whom he says will be foreigners.
Major scandal that probably we haven't heard the last of there in Japan.
All right, many thanks for that, Kate Moody. We'll have more business news for you later.